principles and values that we learn from Islam. And inshallah, if you have time before Salah, probably we'll have a Q&A, or we can have it after that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So, a little bit of background about me. I'm a former architect turned brand architect. I'm a certified brand specialist. Alhamdulillah, Allah granted me the privilege of being mentored by some of the top people in the industry. Some of the names as Christo or Martin Umair, and usually if you are from the creative industry, you would know these people. And I have my own agency out of the box. We work with a lot of different organizations, even Islamic organizations, edutech companies and whatnot. And subhanAllah, we've been around for a while, and the pleasure that you see is not when you work on a project. The pleasure that you see is when that project becomes big and that organization sees an impact for what they've done. But subhanAllah, knowing that they've had the right foundation, that's what gives you pleasure. And this is what we're going to get into today. So, what is branding? Now, there is a lot of jargon that's thrown around. It's a buzzword. A lot of people hear the word branding and brand and whatnot, right? So, I just want to have a quick, thought from all of you guys. What do you guys think branding is? You can raise your hand.
An image.
Okay, an image. Harun?
The art of creating spaces in the hearts and minds.
I shouldn't be asking Harun because he's been following me for a while. Okay, others. What word comes to your mind?
Deception.
Huh?
Deception.
Deception, mashallah. That's actually true too. It's actually very true. And we'll be getting into that. I have something I'll be covering today. Anybody else? A common one we hear is a logo. And alhamdulillah, it's just that nobody mentioned that here, but I guess some of you guys did have that in mind. Anyone that had that in mind? See, one of the brothers there, mashallah. So, people think it's a logo, right? Or it's an image, or it's a presentation of who you are and whatnot. SubhanAllah, I was trying to understand why do people think as such? Because it's not what the industry thinks of it as, but people think of it as such because if you think about the traditional way something is branded, you think of animals in the past where the owners would brand the animal with their mark just to show that they have ownership of this. And subhanAllah, there's some truth to it, but the word, if I had the chance to change it, I would actually love to change it, but it's just that it's stuck around for a while, so we have to deal with it, right? Now, anyone recognizes this?
Thank you.
But what does it mean to you? Like, what do you think? What words come to your mind when you see this?
Reliable sports shoes.
Sports?
Shoes.
Shoes? What else?
Messi.
Messi? How about this one? What comes to your mind, Maghrib? Huh? Mango. But still, that's cool. What comes to your mind? What words come to your mind?
Overpriced tech.
Huh? Overpriced tech. That's good. Phone. Okay. What else?
Niche.
Why do you say niche?
It basically, once you have a MacBook, it kind of puts you in a certain niche, creates a perception of sort of intellectual.
You feel like you're part of a group. You're part of a crowd that not others. Okay, interesting. Okay, these two are logos, right? But you recognize this one?
Yes. It's my kryptonite.
So we recognize it, but it's not a logo, right? It's just a bottle. And the shape of that bottle. So, subhanAllah, it's not a logo, right? People recognize just by looking at the color. There are two elements here. There's the shape of the bottle, and there's also the color, right? Now, who recognizes this? Right? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All of us recognize. But subhanAllah, the fascinating thing for me is that when I delved deeper into branding, I was like, we all recognize brands by logos, but subhanAllah, there's no such image that we know. Like, we don't know how the Prophet ﷺ look like we have description of it, but then we love him and we follow him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We know his story and whatnot, and that's what connects with us. So again, we've got to rethink. Is it a logo? Is it an image? Does the face really matter? Right? Of course it does matter to a certain extent. It is a way to recognize somebody. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ has the most beautiful face among mankind, right? Now, the thing about branding is that every one of us creates this mental space about all these brands that we looked at, right? Every time we meet somebody, or every time we interact with a brand, we create this mental space for that brand. It's like, okay, burger brand, and we have like a couple of lists of burger brands in our mind, and this is that mental bubble that fills up with those names. But not necessarily all of that we like, right? Now, if I say which burger brand do you love the most, probably some of you would say, you know, McDonald's, or somebody would say we don't support that, right? And some of us might say BRGR burger because it's locally available, or My Burger Lab, or something as such, right? And this is where some of it actually entered our heart. We created a space for that. We have a space for gadgets, we have a space for, you know, food, we have a space for particular types of food, we have space for our friends, we have space for certain personalities and whatnot. It's just like, we create these emotional spaces in our heart, and this is because of that emotional brand that they have put in our heart, and that's the mark that they've left, right? If someone did you ever have that thought where there's this friend or somebody who left an impact in your life, in a good or bad way? In a good way, there's like, you touched my heart. In a bad way, you see, you left a scar in my heart, right? And subhanAllah, both ways is something that is an emotional mark that is left in you. And this is what companies do when it comes to them interacting with you, right, on a daily basis. Now, this is where I came to the conclusion that branding is the art and science of planning spaces in the hearts and minds of people, right? It is the art because we have to be creative about it. It's the science because it's backed by data. We have to study and we have to understand where people come from. And we are constantly planning that space to make a meaning out of that space, right? Like this masjid has a meaning to all of us. And that's why we come here. And we have a space for the masjid in our heart. It's not just in the mind, right? For all the non-Muslims who live here, they have the masjid in their mind. It's just one of the spaces that exists in this condominium. But it's not necessarily in their heart. They'll come here, right? It's not entered their heart yet. And may Allah guide them. So, subhanAllah, and the brand is the space occupied in your mind, right? Or in your heart. And that is what is reputation. Right? Every one of us has some sort of reputation, right? Good, bad reputation, different things, goes up and down and whatnot. So, how does all of this work? The day we were born, we're kind of faceless, right? Nobody knows us, our parents gave us a name, we grew up, and this is kind of the journey that looks like over here, right? We're a baby, we grow up, we develop a personality, we have a couple of friends that we build around us, and that kind of becomes our tribe, and it starts building a personality about us, who we are and whatnot. And then subhanAllah, as we grow up further, we start having like, oh, this is my career goal, this is what I want to become when I get older and whatnot. And then now you start your career, and sometimes people have career shifts and whatnot, right? And subhanAllah, over time what we have is like, we're slowly going to the point like, you know what, I need to maybe leave a legacy behind. I want to do something, and this is a cycle of people over time, right? But subhanAllah, during this whole cycle, if you realize, each and every one of us builds a reputation. Some of us build bigger reputation, that's why people are famous. Some of us don't. And this is where you can have, like basically this is what happens to brands like Apple, for instance. They were very small in the beginning, nobody knew about them. They built their reputation, grew. And they build bad reputation too. It's not like everybody has a good reputation about them, right? Now, you may bring two identical twins and both have different reputation because both had a different journey. And both have a different tribe, both have different values they live by and whatnot. And that is where two brands kind of look alike, but they're two different ones. They may be in the same industry, They might be providing the same service, right? Now, why does it matter? If you want your legacy to last beyond you, then you need branding. And this is what I learned from our Prophet ﷺ, right? And we'll get to that right after this. Now, the moment we are born, the moment we interact, the moment we start a business, there's something called a gut feeling or reputation of that business. And this is, I call it a brandometer, where that reputation keeps coming up and down. Some people will start immediately liking you, and then eventually they'll absolutely love you and they'll recommend you to others. Some people will start disliking the company, and they will hate it, and they will tell people not to go for it, right? And this is where you see certain fanatic Apple fans where this is they're not paid for it, and they go around and tell people that you must buy from Apple. But subhanAllah, which organization is the biggest organization in this world? Harun said it, right? Islam, subhanAllah. You look at every organization in the world from the past, the history that we know until today. There's no organization that can match Islam. Why? Because everybody is part of that organization, right? For other organizations, what happens is that not everybody is part of it. They have customers, they have other people and whatnot. But subhanAllah, all these 1.9 billion people we have in this world and on this globe, they're all part of this organization. They have certain level of dedication to it, right? Now, this Muhammad, random Muhammad, where we know a person, one person says Muhammad is trustworthy, or Hazik is trustworthy, let's say, right? Maybe true, maybe not true, I don't know, I'm not sure, right? But then maybe another guy comes and says that no, Hazik is actually trustworthy. And the third guy comes and says Hazik is trustworthy. And then we have 100 people saying the same thing. Who among you would believe that Hazik is actually trustworthy? Will believe. If 100 people say that Hazik is trustworthy, then you say Hazik is trustworthy. Of course, right? Because you have so many people saying the same thing. But let's say if there is Saleh, I don't know who this person is. Now, Saleh, one guy says he's trustworthy, 10 people say he's 50-50, another person says no, he's not trustworthy at all. Chances are we question ourselves, should I trust this person or not? And this is what happens to brands. The moment you are in the game, you have to constantly make this meter go up on the right side. Right? You want more people to say that they like it, they love it, that consistency that comes in it. So how does it work? Now, in the beginning you have a brand, right? Just a brand that you create. Founders come together. They're like, oh, we want to build a brand. We have this goal. We have this mission. This is the product that we want to put out. This service we want to put out. And then we eventually scout for employees. We get suppliers in. We get customers in to buy from us. Customers have people around them that benefit from it. But what happens after 100 years? They all die. And it's just the brand there, right? And the problem in this is the $1 million question every organization asks. What happens when the founder dies? Everybody's just scared about the death of the founder because it's everything is gonna go haywire and whatnot. This is because there was no proper planning. And I was trying to find the answers to this question. SubhanAllah, I was the answer is right here. We were sitting on a gold mine all this while. Our deen has everything that we need in order to learn how to build a successful organization with dedicated followers, right? And even for commercial purpose, in terms of us building our business, we just have to reflect at how the process has been built, the organization of Islam over time, right? So this is where after 100 years, we get replaced. If we get replaced, the brand survives. If we don't, the brand dies with us. That's what happens, right? Now, we are the most unique nation on this planet. We're 1.9 billion Muslims on the globe, literally 25% of the total population in the world. And for me, it's I was just scratching my head, how is this possible? What made that possible? Right? We are fastest, we hear this a lot, we are the fastest growing religion. Why? Because of our tawheed, monotheism, because of our looks, the way we carry ourselves. because of our manners, because of our values, because of the purpose we have, and a lot more stuff that the Prophet ﷺ left us with. And this is where our Prophet ﷺ, when he started his da'wah, he was one man preaching Islam. Eventually, a couple of his close companions embraced Islam, and in the first 13 years in Makkah, he focused on building that belief, those values and whatnot. And he built a nation that was ready to obey him, ready to obey Allah Azza wa Jalla no matter what, right? And that's where everybody who he preached was ready to migrate to Medina. They decided to go along with him. They took that risk of giving up everything, right? And this is how an organization should be. If the leader says that let's just close everything, we go and shift, everybody follows. If you can build an organization like this, man, this is amazing. Because people don't second question you. They know that you are the best leader and you're going to lead them to the best path, right? And that comes back to the conquest of Makkah. When they were migrating to Medina, they had no idea what's going to happen, right? And subhanAllah, years pass, we come back, Makkah is back in our hands, right? SubhanAllah. And by the time the Prophet ﷺ had the farewell sermon, there were 100,000 companions approximately around that time. And it just kept growing after that, because you usually may think that after that, Prophet ﷺ died and it may not continue, but no, it's on the contrary, it kept growing and growing and growing and growing, unlike any organization out there, right? And this is where the Prophet ﷺ left us with principles and values to live by. And this is something that I realized, like we were doing this like as an obedience, but subhanAllah, it has things that we can learn from when it comes to our own organizations that we want to build. So this comes down to purpose, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn and humans except to worship me. And subhanAllah, all of us here, I know that we have this thing that, worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla is not just in the masjid, right? Being a good business person is worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Being good to others is worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Doing all these different things is worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So subhanAllah, I remember one of the mashayikh back in Saudi, he was explaining this ayah and he told me that subhanAllah, you can turn anything that you do into ibadah. And I was like, really? He's like, you're gonna study university for 4 years, make sure you make your intentions right from the beginning. You can literally make your whole course an ibadah to Allah Azza wa Jalla, because your intention is, inshallah, after I graduate, I'm going to support Islam and I'm going to use this for the betterment of the Muslims and whatnot. And literally every hour, every minute, every second you spend now, you're rewarded for that. And this is like immediate reward, and we know that this reward is guaranteed, unlike the reward of bosses that we have these days, right? Like, not necessarily, right? So purpose is something that is beyond you. This is something that I learned from this. And when you build an organization, you're building an organization that should last beyond you. And it should be beyond even making money. Money should never be the first thing why you're doing something as an organization. As a Muslim, we should be like, the first reason that I'm doing this is because of the ibadah of Allah Azza wa Jalla. I obey Allah and do proper business, do righteous business, and even take it further to support Islam, support the Muslims. And that purpose is now beyond you, and you want this organization to last longer because you want that benefit to keep continuing, and you keep reaping the reward beyond your life. And this is where you think beyond your death, right? And subhanAllah, a lot of times when we do workshops with our clients, we ask them this question. We don't ask them how long you want to run this business, we ask them first, how long do you think you're going to live? And they're like, oh, wait, I thought I'm going to live forever to run this business. That's not gonna be the case, right? You have to pass it to somebody. You have to pass it to somebody who is trustworthy, right? It can't just be an inheritance, because if it is just like that, it doesn't work, right? If it is an inheritance, then you of course need to train your progeny to make sure that they are living up to the standard that you were living by. So this comes down to intention, like I mentioned, right? Our deen constantly tells us to have the right intention. And again, intention, why are we doing this business? Why are we doing, building this brand and whatnot? That intention and, reviving of our intentions, our heart, it constantly straightens an organization. This is where, as an organization, you constantly remind the team, why are we doing this? What is the intention behind us doing all of this? It's not about making money, it's about this, right? So the hadith says that, every action is judged by the intention, so each person will have what he intended. And this is where we always start with the heart. Not with the actions, it has to start with the heart. Your heart needs to align with the actions. Of course, the moment you align the heart with the actions will start following, doing the right thing, right? SubhanAllah, if it doesn't, then eventually you realize that these people are hypocrites, right? If the heart does not align with the actions, this is what a hypocrite is. And may Allah protect us from being that. So, the other thing that I learned, and SubhanAllah, this is thrown around in the branding space a lot, is they say, an organization is like one body, and every department, all functions together, and if one department is not functioning properly, it impacts the remaining departments or the whole organization and whatnot. I was like, we've been listening to this hadith since we were kids, the believers in their mutual kindness, compassion, sympathy are just like one body. When one of the limbs suffers, the whole body responds with equalness and fever, right? And SubhanAllah, we see that in this community as well. Like when somebody gets sick, everybody starts caring about them, or if somebody's missing, everybody cares about them. And I've seen that, mashallah. And this is where it's that bondness that we have as Muslims. And when it comes to organization, that's how it works, right? As a whole organization, if one of the department is misaligned with the direction that you have, then the whole organization starts crumbling, and you just need one bad person in the organization that starts spreading, the disease, and it kind of messes up the organization eventually. And I know one organization that's their culture is so bad, people keep leaving the organization and whatnot. Why? Because there's no holistic approach to the organization. Everyone works in silos here, and that understanding is not there. And maybe even the hiring process was wrong, because they were hired not for their values, but they were hired for their skills, right? And SubhanAllah, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and they're saying that basically you could always teach skills, but you could never teach values. Values are something that people have to accept. But skills is something that you can, of course, train anybody to learn a particular skill or whatnot, right? You can get them up and running to that point. So values are more important. And this is where uniting upon the truth, this is where we unite upon the right thing, right? Our belief, and I won't delve into this deeper, it could be a separate lecture for this one, is Surah Al-Asr. And SubhanAllah, I was thinking of why some of the scholars mentioned that if this was the only surah that was revealed, it would have been sufficient for us. And I was thinking, why? Like, what's so special about this surah, right? And it is so true, it gives us the recipe for success, which it starts by, Allah swears by time, because everything is bound by time. And this is what I was thinking is like, the question that we ask our clients nowadays is because of this one reason, is like, everybody's bound by time, and what are you going to do with that time, right? Indeed, every mankind is in loss, except for those who believe and did righteous deeds and advise each other to truth and advise each other to patience. And each of these things that I've highlighted are important because everybody's in loss. And I would say that, like most business, if they don't have direction, they don't have values, they don't have vision, their purpose is not right, they're already in loss. You will soon see them closing down, shutting down, and whatnot, right? And most cases I've seen businesses where money comes first. Most cases I can see that in a couple of years they shut down, a couple of years they're really suffering. But this is where it comes down to our belief. We have a strong belief, we have a strong heart as an organization. And then also in terms of what we do as an organization, it's important, and what we do encourage and push throughout the organization needs to be consistent, right? And the other thing we have in our deen, and subhanAllah, this is like again and again pushed at us as Muslims, be different from the Jews and Christians, right? And this is how a Muslim looks like for many people. It's like they just stand out because they don't shake hands with the opposite gender, they grow their beards, trim their mustaches, they have these values, they don't drink alcohol, and all these kind of stuff come in, and it's just like a Muslim always stands out. So this is where one of the hadith the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, be different from the Jews and the Christians, let your beards grow and trim your mustaches. But there's so many hadith that talk about the same thing again and again, be different from the Jews and the Christians, be different, be different. And this is so important because subhanAllah, in the branding space, being different is like the iconic thing that we talk about. That when you are different, you immediately stand out and you become an easy option for people to choose. But when you look like everybody else and you copy everybody else, then you're not unique, right? And subhanAllah, just a side thing quick, is one of the brothers here in the masjid, he told me something very interesting. He said that, subhanAllah, every single person in this ummah is so unique. I think we should wait for the other.